what happened to a popular sign that once stood on the Upper Bucks Rail Trail?
Yeah, the sign talked about the rocks you see on the trail and how dinosaurs once roamed this part of the Lehigh Valley. Our Drew Anderson knows what happened to the sign, and he's joining us now with more. It's a detailed sign. Drew, good morning.
It is. Good morning. And who knew dinosaurs were right here? And right there, that's where the sign used to be. Unfortunately, it got vandalized, so it was taken down. But all is not lost. We talked with a local geologist who wrote the sign. He works for Lehigh University, and he told us all about the history of these rocks and what you can see along the Upper Bucks Rail Trail.
You'll see Bob riding the Upper Bucks Rail Trail every day. And today, I hopped on that empty seat. So about a month ago, what did you notice that was different on the trail when you're doing a bike ride one day?
The sign was missing, which I stopped to read every day.
Officials removed that sign because it was vandalized. Bob and I met up with the geologist who wrote that popular sign.
The sign that was here and that we're trying to replace was here because you can see all of these ferns coming down, and it looks like a tropical kind of prehistoric place.
It helps you envision the dinosaurs that once walked right here.
And there was a dinosaur trackway up there. These are the famous Coopersburg dinosaur trackway.
Fossilized footprints mean these rocks formed in prehistoric times.
The way that we read that history is through rocks like this.
According to these rocks, Pennsylvania and New Jersey were once south of the equator.
You'll see these round holes. The point of those holes is to take out a little core, and we then know, because of that, that this sediment was deposited much closer to the equator.
Over time, sediment like this coarse sand, fine silt, and powdery clay cemented into this rock.
And then the layers that are more recessed are a little bit finer grained, maybe not as well cemented, or cemented with something that could be more easily dissolved.
Now these areas, which are sticking out farther, are made from harder, more coarse sediment. That's why they stood up better to erosion.
Look at the way that the rocks are layered. Look at the way that they're dipping. They have an incredible story to tell.
All of that gives clues that lakes were once right here.
And those lakes expanded and contracted as climate waxed and waned. And so that imparts a pattern in these rocks. And that, as a geoscientist, that's one of the first things that my eye is drawn to.
And we have more about the history of our local rocks right at WFMZ.com. This article is waiting for you on the homepage. And I think it's so interesting that our rocks and even our mountains are here for all these different reasons. Do you know why the Appalachian Mountains are here? Let me show you why. I actually grabbed these from my kitchen sink, some sponges. Let's pretend these are continents. So back in the day, this would have been Africa. Back in the day, this would be us. And here's what happened. Present-day Africa slammed into North America, and look what happens. The ground buckled, and that's what made the Appalachian Mountains. Now, our mountains, not quite as big as out west, just because they've been around a lot longer, so they've been eroded over time. Also in our article, we got a little bit deeper into that equator talk. We should be below the equator. Must have been pretty warm these parts. Here's a look at the equator, by the way. If you've never been there, there's a monument here in Ecuador, but it's not technically at the equator. It's just a sneeze away, but close enough. Pretty cool to see that. And fascinating to hear about the geology work that was done with those core samples from Lehigh University. They examined them. They took a look at the magnetic sediment in there, and that's how they figured out that we were once well south of the equator. So a lot to learn there at WFMZ.com. And we certainly hope that the sign makes its way back down the road once they get some funding to fix it up. We have more on that in the article as well.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Drew.
Interesting stuff. All right, it's 7